The Rugby Championship is done and the Springboks managed to win it. Now I want to rate every single player's performance that played for South Africa in the Rugby Championship. As always, let me know your guys' opinions down in the comments. Leave this video a like and please hit that subscribe button. As you guys know, we've already interviewed Sia Khaleesi thanks to you guys. Now we need to try interview Rassie Erasmus by the end of the year, and the only way we can do that is with your guys' support. So hit that subscribe button and let's get into these player ratings. All right, so let's start off with the props. Now, 6 props played for South Africa: Frans Malherbe, Oxencher, Gerrit Vincent Koch, Thomas du Toit, and Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Now, let's start with Frans Malherbe. I mean, you know what you're gonna get from France. You're gonna get some very, very solid scrums. You're gonna get a couple of penalties off those scrums. He's gonna do all the dirty work in the rucks, and I think he did dominate the scrums and made some key contributions, especially against Argentina. Frans Malherbe, overall, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Oxencher. Now, Ox was probably the standout prop in the Rugby Championship, not even in the Springbok jersey, within the Rugby Championship. The way he scrummed, the way he carried the ball over the gain line, the way he did his dirty work, his tackles. He was one of the most impressive players from the Rugby Championship, not even from a Springbok point of view, but as a whole. So I think Oxencher gets a 9 out of 10 for his performance in the Rugby Championship. Gerrit filled in well for Steven Kitshoff, who obviously was injured for most of the Rugby Championship, maintaining a high standard of play off of the bench. And I think he did his job, right? I don't think he made any crucial mistakes. Yes, maybe his scrummaging wasn't as good as Ox and France, but I mean, it's Ox and France, so it's going to be very difficult to sort of get that go forward ball, especially, or get that comparison to France and Ox. But I think he did a phenomenal job, especially coming off the bench. So I think Gerrit gets an 8 out of 10 for his performances. Then into Vincent Koch, Mr. Incredible. He basically made an impact in every single match, adding experience and power to the bomb squad when he came on. Again, one of those players that you know exactly what you're going to get when he comes on. A good scrummager, makes his tackles, does all the dirty work around the rucks. I'm going to give Vincent Koch a 7 out of 10 for his performance in the Rugby Championships. Thomas du Toit earned 2 starts and definitely impressed with his work rate as well as his scrummaging. I thought potentially he was going to get a couple more starts, but he got his 2, and I'm interested to see if he makes the team for the November tour, because it's against England, Scotland and Wales, and we know that Thomas du Toit plays his rugby in Bath, so he's going to be used to those conditions, he's going to be used to playing against those types of players. So I definitely think we'll see a little bit more of Thomas du Toit, but nonetheless I'm also going to give him a 7 out of 10. And then finally, Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Versatile as a prop and a hooker. I don't think he made great impact coming on for the Springboks. Obviously, we saw him against Portugal, which was outside of the Rugby Championship, and maybe that sort of swayed our opinions on him. Maybe they made him look a little bit better than he is. I still think he shows a lot of promise in that Springbok top. He shows a lot of promise as a young guy sort of coming up to take over from the Steven Kitshoffs, the Vincent Kochs, the Thomas du Toits and so on. But I'm going to give Jan-Hendrik Wessels a 6 out of 10. Then moving into the hooker department. Now, Jan-Hendrik Wessels did play 1 game, come on for Malcolm Marx at number 16, but we put him with the props. The other 3 hookers are Malcolm Marx, Bongi Mbonambe, and Johan Grobbler. Now, I don't think either one of the 3 had a remarkable Rugby Championship. I mean, there were no Pieter-Steph du Toit, but Malcolm Marx, despite some line-out struggles, he scored 4 tries and remained a physical presence at the breakdown. Maybe he didn't steal as many balls as we sort of have become accustomed to Malcolm Marx stealing, but nonetheless, I thought he had a decent performance, 7 out of 10. Bongi, more reliable at line-out time than Malcolm Marx, but we also saw Marx get subbed on for Bongi a couple of times, a little bit earlier than maybe we expected. So maybe just something in the tactics there that they didn't get right off the bat. But I think Malcolm and Bongi performed to the same level throughout the Rugby Championship. So I'm also going to give Bongi a 7 out of 10. And then finally, Johan Grobbler played 1 match but performed well despite the line-out issues. Again, it's difficult to judge Johan Grobbler just because he didn't have that much game time. I don't think he provided as much impact as sort of a Malcolm Marx does when he comes off the bench. So for me, I think Johan Grobbler will potentially be in the plans for November, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe try out another couple of hookers going into that November tour. I'm going to give Johan Grobbler a 6 out of 10. Then moving into the locks. Now we only have 3 locks: Eben Etzebeth, Rowan Nokia and Salman Murat, and that's also because Peter Steff slotted into lock a couple of times. You've got Ulrich Loh can also play lock. So although we have this lock crisis, right, Luat Diaco, Franco Mostert, there's a whole bunch of them that are injured. I think Eben Etzebeth, Ron Nokia and Salman Murat did a very, very good job, having not had all the depth and players that maybe Rassie Erasmus would have liked to choose from, but nonetheless, Eben Etzebeth played all 6 matches. He's super consistent. He is our go-to man in the lineouts. He's our enforcer. I think he did a phenomenal job. He's just consistent. Again, one of those players that you know exactly what you're going to get from Eben Etzebeth. And he also reached a very, very cool milestone, becoming the most capped Springbok player ever. He's just going to continue doing what he's doing. I'm going to give Eben an 8 out of 10 for the Rugby Championship. Rowan Nokia, potentially one of the finds of the Rugby Championship and the season for the Springboks. Again, with that lock crisis, he got the call up to sort of slot into that lock position, contributing with very, very solid efforts. And I think the more experience Rowan Nokia gets in a Springbok top, the better he's going to get, right? He's very good in the lineouts. He tackles well. He's an enforcer at ruck time, and he can carry the ball. But I think when all the locks are fit, Rowan Nokia is really going to have to step up because, I mean, RG Snyman, Luat Diaco, Franco Mostert, there's just so many very, very talented Springbok locks. But nonetheless, I think Rowan Nokia had a good performance. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. And then finally, Salman Murat. I mean, there's big talking points over Salman Murat at the moment. I don't think he's up to the caliber of a Springbok lock at the moment. Obviously, they see him for his leadership and potentially taking the Springboks forward over the next couple of years. But if we're being honest, if we're being frank, Salman Murat was nowhere near the standard of a Springbok lock in the games that he's played. And maybe it's because he suffered that concussion early on in the Rugby Championship. Maybe that affected him a little bit. But when you get to Springbok level, there's no room for excuses. And I mean, we've seen that with a player like Manie Lebok. No one gives that guy an excuse. So Salman Murat, under par, I'm going to give him a 5 out of 10. Then we move over into the loose forwards, and this is always a very, very interesting topic and area of the game for the Springboks, right? We have Ulrich Loh, Peter Steff, Siya Kolisi, Ben Jason Dixon, Marco van Staden, Kwagga Smith, Jasper Visser. And I think the big talking point was sort of who is going to be that next 8th man for the Springboks. Obviously, Dwayne Vermeulen retired after the Rugby World Cup, and now we've got Ulrich Loh, Kwagga Smith, Jasper Visser in the squad. But then we also have players like Pepsi Buthelezi, Cameron Hanekom, who will most likely get a shot in that November tour. We've got Mpilo Gumede. So there's a lot of pressure on that 8th man jersey. There's a lot of options. So Ulrich Loh coming in took his chance in the absence of Visser and Ivan Roos, also another guy that I forgot to mention. I think a lot of people were a little bit skeptical over Ulrich Loh, and I think he delivered. He had a phenomenal season for the Bulls in the URC last season, and I think he delivered as much as he could. Was he outstanding? Probably not. Was he good enough? Yes. So I'm going to give Ulrich Loh a 7 out of 10. Peter Steff du Toit. I mean, I don't think there's much more to say about Peter Steff du Toit. He is undoubtedly one of the best players in the world of rugby at the moment. He's just, the amount of tackles he makes, the amount of contributions he makes within a game, his leadership now that is starting to come through, he's just he's a freak of nature. He can play 7, he can play 8, he can play lock. He's just South Africa's best player at the moment. And I think Peter Steff du Toit gets a 10 out of 10 performance for the Rugby Championship. Basically a perfect performance. Siya Kolisi raised his game after his injury, excelling against the All Blacks and Argentina, delivering powerful ball carries. Now, Siya is just one of those guys that he's the leader, he's the captain of the Springboks, and the Springboks would be nowhere near where they are today without the likes of Siya Kolisi. And even with all the external media from Racing 92 and him moving to the Sharks, when he puts on a Springbok jersey, he becomes Siya Kolisi. It's absolutely phenomenal to see. I'm so proud of the guy. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Next up, we've got Ben Jason Dixon, who was a little bit underwhelming against the All Blacks. I mean, he even got substituted off early at the Ellis Park test. But Ben Jason Dixon is one of those guys, and we know how much Rusty and the coaching staff love utility within players. He's one of those guys that can play 6, 7, 8 lock. He's very much a Peter-esque type of player, and I think they see him as a future leader. He shows a lot of promise, and I do think Ben Jason Dixon is going to be in the Springbok setup for a very, very long time. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 for his Rugby Championship performance. Marco van Staden, very strong defensive performances, but was definitely stretched a little bit against Argentina. He also picked up a yellow card in one of the previous matches. I can't remember if it was against Australia or New Zealand. He played well in key moments, but I just wasn't too convinced by Marco van Staden. Normally, he comes off of the bench, provides impact, steals a couple of balls, and you really, at the end of the game, people are talking about Kwagga Smith and Marco van Staden and how they sort of changed the game for the Springboks. I don't think he had that in this Rugby Championship. So I'm going to give Marco van Staden a 6 out of 10. Next, we have Kwagga Smith. Now, Kwagga Smith, like Pieter-Steph du Toit, is arguably one of the best impact players in international rugby at the moment. He's just so consistent. He scored 2 tries. He's going to turn over balls in key situations. He's going to win the team key penalties. And I think Kwagga Smith was one of the best performing loose forwards that we had in the Rugby Championship. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. Lastly, we got Jasper Visser. Now, there was a lot said about Jasper Visser's return to the Springbok setup after his ban. Was he going to be able to fit in? Is Ulrich Loh playing 8? Is Kwagga Smith playing 8? Well, they backed Jasper Visser for a lot of the Rugby Championship. He combined very, very well with Ulrich Loh, one of them starting on the bench, one of them starting, and that sort of partnership seems to be blossoming quite well. I just don't think Jasper Visser was at the same level that we saw him at the Rugby World Cup. He was just below that, just didn't impress that. Like, he wasn't bad, he was good, but he wasn't excellent. So I'm going to give Jasper Visser a 7 out of 10. With the forwards done, now we move into the back line, starting off with the scrum halves. Kobus Reinach, Grant Williams, Morne van den Berg, and Jaden Hendrickse. Now, Kobus Reinach is one of those reliable veterans, right? It's almost like a Andre Pollard. You know exactly what you're going to get from him in that number 9 jersey. He made 4 appearances and contributed to a key try, that tap and go against Argentina. Maintained sharp core skills, but I just wasn't too convinced by Kobus Reinach, right? We know him as an impact player. We know that he's electric, but I just don't think he was there. So I'm going to give Kobus Reinach a 6 out of 10. Grant Williams, I personally think Grant Williams is our best scrum half in South Africa at the moment. It's a little bit unfortunate that he did get injured, but I think scoring a crucial try against the All Blacks and providing energy off the bench, his kicking game is strong, his passing game is strong. He's just a very well-rounded scrum half, and I think he's definitely one for the future. I'm going to give Grant Williams an 8 out of 10 for his Rugby Championship performance. Then Morne van den Berg started in Perth, but definitely struggled. It was raining, and I just don't think he emulated the form that got him into the Springbok jersey in that game. A little bit unfortunate for him. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. He has a lot of potential. We're going to see him with the Lions this year. And I'm really, really hoping that he can step up the next time he gets an opportunity in a Springbok top. Then Jaden Hendrickse delivered some very, very solid cameos. Saved his best performance for the final match against Argentina with Manie Libbok as their number 10. Again, I think Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks are playing those combinations in the 9 and 10. I think that's how they're selecting Grant Williams, Manie Libbok, Jaden Hendrickse, Manie Libbok, Kobus Reinach, Andre Pollard. So there's definitely those partnerships in the 9 and 10 combination, which is vital. Jaden Hendrickse, I think he's going to get a little bit more game time in November, and I'm going to give Jaden Hendrickse an 8 out of 10 performance for that. Then into the fly-offs, probably one of the most debated positions in South African rugby at the moment. Sasha Feinberg, Ngumazulu, Andre Pollard, Manie Libbok. Look, I think they all performed above average. I think they all performed very, very well. And if you had to look at all 6 games across the Rugby Championship, I don't think you could pick one of the players that outperformed the next, right? Yes, Manie Libbok missed that kick against Argentina, but then he was arguably, if Pieter-Steph du Toit wasn't on the pitch, the player of the game against Argentina in Nelspruit. So it's difficult to rate these guys, and I think they all performed phenomenally well. Sasha, obviously a breakout star, 3 matches, playing through injury, a little bit cheeky now. He's injured and he's probably going to miss the November tour, but delivered very solid performances. Andre Pollard, Mr. Consistent, 6 matches, playing all 6 matches with an 83% kicking success rate. A little bit low for him, but you know what you're going to get from Andre Pollard. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Rassie Erasmus approaches this November tour with these fly-offs. Does he bring in Jordan Hendrickse as well? Do they trial out Sia Masuku? If Sasha's not available, they are going to have to probably bring in another fly-off, and it'll probably be Jordan Hendrickse. Then do they start Leborg, have Pollard on the bench? Does Jordan Hendrickse play 15? So there's a lot of questions around this number 10 jersey and who's going to slot in. But as for the Rugby Championship, I've given them all an 8 out of 10 performance for the Rugby Championship. Then into the centres, Jesse Kriel, Lukhanyo Damien de Allende. Now, our centres are probably our most consistent performers in the Springbok top. Jesse Kriel, arguably the best outside centre in the world at the moment, excelling both on defence as well as attack, played all the matches and contributed several tries, including 2 scores and an assist. So Jesse Kriel, 8 out of 10. He's just so good in that 13 channel. Lukhanyo showing glimpses of his World Cup, 2019 World Cup form, but I just don't think he's back to his best at the moment. It's clear that the Springboks also don't know whether to play him at 12 or 13, whether to combine de Allende and Kriel, or Lukhanyo and Kriel, or de Allende and Lukhanyo. So it's a good problem to have with 3 world-class players, but I'm going to give Lukhanyo a 6 out of 10 for his performance in the Rugby Championship. And then Damien de Allende, just an absolute powerhouse, will get you over the gain line. It really seems like he started to blossom as a Springbok player almost over the last year or two, right? He's added more skills to his game. His passing is a lot better. He sees space a lot better. His offloads have got better. He's not just a battering ram anymore. He's really finding space and putting other players into space. So for me, Damien de Allende gets an 8 out of 10. Then finally, we have our outside backs: Vili Leroux, Apelele Fassi, Cheslin Colby, Kirtley Arendse, Makazole Mapimpi, and Kainan Moodie. Now, Vili Leroux will get his 100th cap at some point. He probably is going to travel to the UK in November, and it would be quite cool to see him get it there. But I don't think he performed very well in the Rugby Championship. He played 2 games, he performed solidly under the high ball, but he did botch a try, he did pick up a yellow card, and it's not the old Vili Leroux we used to. So I'm going to give Vili Leroux a 6 out of 10. Apelele Fassi, is one of the finds of the Rugby Championship for the Springboks. His aerial skills are absolutely phenomenal. He scored 4 tries in 4 games. His final game against Argentina was arguably a man of the match performance. He's gained over 290 meters and contributed a try assist. He's just unbelievable. And I know a lot of guys have been commenting that maybe I'm riding a little bit too hard for Apelele Fassi, but I really see something special in him. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see where Damian Willemse fits in when he comes back. Do we play Apelele Fassi, Jordan Hendrickse, Damian Willemse? Who plays 10? Who plays 12? It's a very good problem to have, and the talent in South Africa is scarily good at the moment. But Apelele Fassi gets an 8 out of 10 for me. Cheslin Colby and Kirtley Arendse, again, you know what you're going to get from them. Cheslin Colby beat so many defenders, 21 defenders beaten by Cheslin Colby. Kirtley Arendse scored a brace against Australia. He can score from absolutely anywhere, and I do think they still are 2 first choice wingers to play together at the moment. I thought Cheslin was an 8 out of 10 performance. Kirtley was just not up to Cheslin's level, so I'm going to give Kirtley a 7 out of 10. And then finally, Makazole Mapimpi and Kainan Moodie. Kainan played 1 game against the All Blacks, and he kind of looked a little bit out of place, like he wasn't reading the game nicely, that he wasn't up to the pace of the game. So not a great performance from Kainan Moodie. Makazole Mapimpi also showed glimpses of his 2019 form, but I just think also wasn't up to the standard of a Cheslin Colby or Kirtley Arendse. So I'm going to give both Makazole Mapimpi and Kainan Moodie 6 out of 10 for their performance in the Rugby Championship. And that wraps up every single player that played in the Rugby Championship for the Springboks. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments if you agree with my ratings. If you don't, leave this video a like, and as always, absolutely mur that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.